What's good, YouTube? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Pull Up. I am your host, Tony Ramsey, giving you a quick recap of last night's NBA action, bring you up to speed on all the latest news in the association, as well as my predictions for tonight's game of NBA action. Without any further delay, let's go ahead and get into it. First things first, let's talk about the suspensions that the NBA handed down for that Clippers-Lakers brawl from Saturday night. If you haven't already heard, Brandon Ingram got the stiffest penalty there. He got 4 games, 3 games for Rajon Rondo and 2 games for Chris Paul. My opinion on that, I think 4 games is about right for Ingram, considering the way he kind of instigated the whole situation with pushing James Harden. Then sizing up the referee, which I thought he'd get a bigger suspension for than what he got, and also running back into the fray to try to knock somebody out from 30 feet away. So 4 games for Ingram, it was justified. Now, the part that's got me a little bit scratching my head is the 3 games for Rondo and only 2 games for Chris Paul. I think they were equal parties in the situation. There are camera angles that do look like Rondo may have spit on Chris Paul. You still can't prove if that was intentional or not, but either way, Chris Paul did put his finger in Rondo's face, which caused Rondo to swing on him, which caused Chris Paul to throw a couple punches as well. So with them both being antagonists in this thing, I would have given them equal penalties. I think 2 games would have been plenty for both players, but such is life. The penalties are already underway, with Chris Paul missing last night's game against the Clippers in Los Angeles, a game which I had the Rockets still finding a way to win, but they did end up dropping that game. We'll talk about that here in a sec. Another big news from earlier today, the Nuggets forward Will Barton will miss about 5 to 6 weeks. Looks like he needed hip surgery. I think he got that injury. I want to say it might have been Saturday or Friday. It was earlier in the weekend because he did miss the game last night against the Warriors, and that's going to be a big blow for the Nuggets. They were looking like one of the best teams in the NBA so far, but now without having that wing scorer that was able to create and help out Gary Harris, Nikola Jokic, and Jamal Murray, Paul Millsap. They low-key have one of the best rosters in the West, but they will need to find a way to keep everything together without Will Barton in the fray for about a month or 2 months. So we'll see what happens there. Now, getting into the action from last night's game, we just mentioned the Nuggets game where they pulled out a big home win against the Warriors, 100-98. Warriors looked a little bit sluggish during this whole contest here, but at the same time, the Nuggets look like they're one of the best teams in the West. In my predictions, I had them as I believe it might have been the number 5 seed. They could challenge for that number 3 or 4 seed if they continue to play this well. Who knows if they can sustain it with, they were playing in Denver with that high altitude early in the season. They did come off a pretty easy game the night before, whereas Warriors, like as I mentioned before, looked a little bit sluggish. So we'll see if Denver can sustain this level of play throughout the entire season. One thing we all do know is that Nikola Jokic, whatever how you pronounce his name, he is a bona fide MVP candidate this season. There's nothing on the court that he can't do. He may not be the quickest, he may not be the fastest, but he has a ton of tricks in his bag. He can shoot a J, and he's probably the best passing big man we've seen in the NBA in the last decade or so, hands down. So with that being the case, Denver will still be in the playoff this year. About time, because last year they did miss out by just, I believe, that 1 game on the last day of the season. Another action from last night, we had the Rockets dropping the road game to the Clippers, 115-112. Clippers are another young, surprising team that people really might have been writing them off because they did lose a lot of stars from last year, but they are a scrappy bunch that does find a way to still pull out victories. Some numbers there from that game. Looks like James Harden did go for 31 and 14. Eric Gordon in the start went for 21, but he only shot 7 of 18 from the field. And then you do have Gallinari put up 20 and Tobias Harris putting up 23 for the Clippers and the victory there. Again, the Clippers are now 2-1 on the season. Pretty good start the year. Don't know if they can still keep this going and stay around 500. They might. Doc Rivers is a very good coach. They do have a good cast of supporting players. They do have a couple players that can get their own buckets, so they might be competitive throughout the full season. Still think they're going to miss the playoffs though when it comes down to it. Another game from last night, we had the Hawks and the Cavaliers. I had the Cavs winning this game. The Hawks won this one 133-111 behind 35 and I want to say 11 from Trae Young, his first 30-10 game in the NBA. Now, I wouldn't expect this to happen too often. He did shoot, I believe, 13 for 23 from the floor. I'd expect Trae Young to be shooting under 40% on most nights simply because he takes terrible shots. He can make some shots. He can get hot and hit a bunch of them in a row. But it seems like the Cavaliers are just sleepwalking through the season. And that happens too when you have a bunch of veterans on a team and they know they're a bad team. They tend to check out of the year pretty early until they can get traded to a better team. So it's going to be a tough year for the Cavs. I had them making a run at that 8th seed. We'll see what happens if they move some of these veterans like George Hill, J.R. Smith. Chetty Osman is somebody to watch. He has a lot of talent there, so I really like Osman a lot. I like Colin Sexton, as I mentioned before. But everybody else, they're just biting the time until they find a better team that's going to help them right out the end of their career. And in the last game of the night, we had the Kings winning a surprising road game against the Thunder, 131-120 in Russell Westbrook's first game of the season. He did put up 30, I believe, 30, 12, and 8 assists, 32, I believe. Paul George might have had 29 in this game as well. But the Kings were anchored right there by De'Aaron Fox. He put up 22 and 10, and they found a resurgence from Iman Shumpert. Somebody dug him up out the grave, and he came out and put up 26, hit 4 3-pointers. I believe he had 16 in the first quarter or something crazy like that. So that gives OKC an 0-3 start to the season. They got a lot of soul searching to do right there. You can't drop games like this at home to Sacramento Kings, especially when you're playing in Westbrook's first game of the season. You got to find a way to win these kind of games. They can't do that. They don't have a chance. I mean, they'll still come back to rebound because there are very few forces in the league like Russell Westbrook. But something to keep an eye on is that they can dig themselves out of this hole before Thanksgiving, or if they're going to be able to play catch up the rest of the way. We'll see what happens there. Now, as far as tonight's slate of games, we do have about 9 games on the schedule. We have the Pacers going to the Timberwolves. Pacers are 2-1. Timberwolves are 1-2 in the season. I give Minnesota the edge here. I think Jimmy Butler has another big game as he's still making a case to be traded. We'll see if him and Cat can both now have a good game together. Seems like, as I mentioned in my last video, that Cat plays well when Jimmy Butler's not there. Jimmy Butler plays well all the time, and Cat seems to take a back seat. So if they can both find a way to be alpha dogs together, Timberwolves have something good still going on there. People forget they were the number 3 seed before Butler got hurt last season, so keep that in mind. We got the Wizards visiting Portland. Wizards at 0-2, Portland at 2-0. The Wizards need a win in the worst way. Both their losses were at home, and Portland's coming off a big win on Saturday. Damian Lillard's putting up his usual points. C.J. McCollum's giving him what he gives him as well. So we're going to need Washington to come out in this game and make the case that they are one of the best teams in the East. I think they dropped this game to start the year 0-3. We'll see what happens there. We got the Suns visiting the Warriors. Golden State is favored by 12.5 points. That is a huge spread, but I think Golden State, coming off that loss to Denver last night, now playing back at home, finds a way to come out here and blow out Phoenix. I think they're going to jump on them very early on and put this game away, but before the first quarter is over. Spurs visiting the Lakers. Spurs at 1-1. Lakers at 2-0. This game will be on NBA TV at 10:30 Eastern Time and 7:30 Pacific. It's going to be hard for Lakers to rebound from that Saturday loss at home in LeBron's home debut, but they need to find a way to get a good win here. This would be a good chance to do that against a Spurs team that is still a little bit depleted. They still do have DeMar DeRozan, they still do have Marcus Aldridge and some other pieces there, but I think the Lakers are going to come out and win this game behind a huge game from LeBron. Without Rondo and Brandon Ingram, LeBron's going to have to carry this team, and he's more than capable of doing that. We've seen it over the past 15 plus years. Magic visiting Boston. The Magic are 1-2. Boston's 2-1. And Boston's favored by 11 points. I think Boston wins this game, but I don't think they cover. Hornets visiting the Raptors. The Hornets are very surprising 2-1, where Toronto is 3-0. This game is in Toronto. Toronto favored by 8.5 points. Hornets are a very competitive team. I'm going to go ahead and still pick the Raptors to win this, but I do not think they cover that spread, the 8.5 spread. So if you're a gambling man, I'd pick the Hornets. But if you just want to pick a straight winner, I'm going with the Celtics here. Then we have Knicks at Milwaukee. The Knicks are 1-2. The Bucks are 2-0. Giannis, best player in the NBA. Knicks going to be without Kevin Knox for the next, I believe, 4 weeks or so. I'm going to give the edge here to the Bucks. I think they win this one pretty easily. They also are an 11-point favorite, which I think that they will not cover, as the Knicks do seem to play a lot more competitive under Dave Fizdale. Bulls at 0-2 visiting the Mavericks. The Mavericks are 1-1, and the Mavs are favored by 5 points in this game. I would give the edge here to the Mavs. Although the Bulls do score a lot of points, they also don't play very good defense. Luka Doncic had a big 26 points in his last game. I think he keeps that run going on now. He's a little bit more comfortable in the NBA. And the Bulls, again, don't play any defense, so this should be a route for Dallas. I think they do cover that 5-point spread. And in the last game of the night, we have the Grizzlies visiting the Jazz. Both teams are 1-1. Utah's favored by 10 points. A lot of 10-point spreads in tonight's schedule. You don't see that very often. But I'm going to go ahead and go with Utah in this game, and I think they will cover that 10-point spread as Memphis doesn't have a lot of scoring. I think in their last game they were led by Gary Temple in points, but the Jazz are still quietly one of the best teams in the NBA. You'll look up and you'll see Joe Ingles have 20-something points. Mitchell's going to get his buckets, of course, but if they can get production out of Ingles, Dante Exum, Derek Favors, Jay Crowder, from those role players, and I think the Utah Jazz are going to have a pretty easy game here and take this one running away. But that's all the time we have for today, everybody. Thank you again for tuning in for this week's episode, or tonight's episode of The Pull Up. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and hit the notification link. That way, whenever I drop a new video every day, you can be alerted right away. You can see my predictions, get my feedback, and let me know what you guys think. If you guys agree or disagree, please leave that in the comments down below. Again, my name is Tony Ramsey. This has been The Pull Up for Monday, October 22nd. Talk to you guys again soon. Peace.